I never thought betrayal could wear the same face as mine. But when your own sister becomes your enemy, the wound cuts deeper than any breakup, any loss, any lie. My name is Lena Carter, and this story isn't something I'm proud to tell, but it's something I need to tell. Because no matter how careful you are, no matter how much love you pour into the people closest to you, there's always the chance that someone will use that love against you. Growing up, my sister Chloe and I were inseparable. She was 2 years younger than me, the wild one, the kind who could charm her way out of any trouble. Where I was quiet and organized, she was bold and unpredictable. People loved her instantly. Teachers, neighbors, even strangers. Chloe always knew how to make them adore her. And I was the responsible one. The one who cleaned up after her messes, covered for her when she missed curfews, and gave her half my wardrobe even when she forgot to return it. That's just what older sisters do, right? Or so I thought. The real nightmare began about 3 years ago, right around the time I met Ethan. Ethan wasn't the kind of guy who swept you off your feet with grand gestures or smooth talk. He was quiet, stable, the kind of man who looked at you like you were the only thing that made sense in a chaotic world. I met him at a charity fundraiser I was organizing for the hospital I worked at. He donated generously to the cause, but what caught my attention wasn't his money. It was his humility. He introduced himself simply as Ethan Hayes. No mention that he was the son of a real estate magnate or that his family name was practically printed on half the buildings downtown. I only found that out later, much later, when I was already falling for him. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. Not as Chloe's older sister, not as the dependable Carter girl who always played it safe, but as me, Lena, the woman with dreams and flaws and a heart that wanted something real. Chloe was supportive at first, or at least she pretended to be. I still remember the night I first introduced them. Ethan had come over for dinner and Chloe had dropped by unannounced, wearing one of my dresses no less. She laughed it off when I teased her about it, but I noticed how she looked at Ethan. That lingering glance, that too sweet smile. I brushed it off because Chloe flirted with everyone. That was just who she was. But Ethan didn't seem to notice. Or maybe he did and he was just being polite. Over the next few months, things between Ethan and me grew serious. We talked about moving in together, even marriage someday. It all felt perfect. Too perfect, maybe. Then came the night of our engagement party. Ethan had proposed at sunset by the lake, and I'd cried so hard I could barely say yes. We were surrounded by friends, laughter, champagne, and this dizzying sense that the future was finally everything I'd hoped for. And Chloe, she was right there, hugging me tighter than anyone else. "God, Lena, you deserve this," she whispered, smiling with tears in her eyes. "You deserve to be happy." If only I'd known how hollow those words were. Because what I didn't see, what no one saw, was how Chloe had been planting seeds behind my back. Little things at first. Borrowing my ID for a job application, asking to use my email just to register for something. At the time, it didn't even seem strange. She was my sister. I'd trusted her completely. Then, one morning, about 2 months after the engagement, Ethan started acting distant. He canceled dinners, forgot to call, and always had an excuse. Busy week at work, deadlines, family stuff. I tried to be understanding. Relationships have ups and downs, right? But something felt off. Then came the call that shattered everything. It was from my bank. Someone had opened a new credit line under my name, using my social security number, my address, even my signature. I was stunned. I filed a report immediately, thinking it was identity theft from some hacker or scammer. But then, as I reviewed the paperwork, I noticed something odd. The handwriting. It looked familiar? That soft curve on the L's, the little loop on the Y. It looked like Chloe's handwriting. No. I told myself it couldn't be. That was too insane, even for her. But as I dug deeper, more things started to make sense. Or rather, stop making sense. Emails I didn't remember sending, messages from me to Ethan that sounded off, cold, manipulative. And then one rainy evening, Ethan showed up at my apartment looking like he'd seen a ghost. He said he didn't think we should see each other anymore. Just like that. I remember standing there, holding the ring he'd slipped onto my finger just months ago, staring at him through tears. "Why?" I whispered. "What did I do?" He looked away, his voice barely a whisper. "I just don't think I know who you are anymore, Lena." And with that, he left. I spent weeks in confusion, grief, and disbelief. I called, texted, begged for an explanation, but he'd gone silent. Even Chloe stopped answering my calls. Until one day, I saw her, smiling on social media, tagged in a photo from some fancy restaurant, with Ethan. At first, I thought it was old, maybe some random coincidence. But then I looked closer. Her hair was styled the way she'd been wearing it recently. The caption read, "New Beginnings." And on her finger, my sister's finger, was the engagement ring Ethan had given me. My world stopped spinning. Somehow, she'd used my identity, literally and emotionally, to step into my life. The woman I trusted most had stolen the man I loved, and the very name I'd built my life around. And that's when I decided, if she wanted to live as me, she'd soon learn what it meant to be exposed by me. Because I wasn't done. Not yet. This was only the beginning. After I saw that picture, I couldn't breathe. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. I just stared at the screen. My sister's smile, Ethan's arm around her, my engagement ring glinting under the restaurant lights. At first, I wanted to believe there was some logical explanation. Maybe it was an old photo. Maybe Ethan was confused, or Chloe was helping him with something. Anything but what it looked like. But deep down, I already knew the truth. Chloe had done something unforgivable. The next morning, I called her. No answer. I texted her, messaged her, even went by her apartment. No response. It was like she'd disappeared. Or rather, she'd blacked me out of her new life. For days, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every moment between us. Every time I'd trusted her. Every time she'd smiled while secretly taking from me. The realization that my own sister had manipulated my ex into thinking she was me made me sick to my stomach. But then things got even stranger. I received a letter in the mail, addressed to me, but it wasn't mine. It was an RSVP confirmation for a wedding. The bride and groom's names were listed as Ethan Hayes and Lena Carter. My hands started shaking so hard I almost dropped it. She wasn't just dating him. She was marrying him. Under my name. My first reaction was disbelief. How could anyone even pull something like that off? But then I remembered. She had my ID. My social security, even access to my email. She'd been collecting my information for months, and I hadn't realized what she was building toward. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a plan. At that moment, something inside me hardened. The heartbreak that had consumed me turned into focus. Icy, unshakable focus. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to beg for explanations. No, I was going to uncover every piece of what she'd done, and I was going to make sure she could never do it again. The investigation begins. I started with what I knew, My credit records, my email, my phone logs. Slowly, piece by piece, I began tracing her trail. The credit account that had been opened under my name? I called the bank. They confirmed the applicant had presented a photo ID, a duplicate driver's license. My picture, her face. I filed an identity theft report immediately. The officer who took my statement was kind but skeptical. "You're saying your sister did this to you?" he asked carefully. "Yes," I said, my voice flat. "My own sister." He paused, then nodded. "That's rare, but we'll start the process." Next, I went through my social media accounts. Chloe had blocked me on everything, but fake accounts don't block you back. I made a new one, an empty profile with a random name, and searched for Ethan. There he was, and there she was too, posting photos together like nothing was wrong. "Can't wait to marry the love of my life, heart," she'd captioned one picture. Every photo looked like a knife to the chest. My ring, my hairstyle, even my favorite shade of lipstick. She was becoming me. I showed the photos to my best friend Renee, who had been by my side since college. She looked at me with wide eyes. "Lena, this is psychotic. She's literally living your life." "I know," I whispered, "and I'm going to take it back." Setting the trap. I reached out to Ethan next. It took everything in me to press send on that message. "Lena, Ethan, we need to talk. You've been lied to." Hours passed with no reply. Then finally, "Ethan, please don't message me again. You've caused enough damage." Damage? Me? That's when I realized she must have told him something terrible about me. But I needed to be smart. If I went in screaming accusations, I'd look exactly like whatever crazy ex story she'd probably told him. So I played it calm. I sent one more message. "Lena, you deserve to know the truth. I'll prove it if you'll meet me once. Just one time. After that, if you still believe her, I'll leave you alone forever." To my surprise, he agreed. We met at a small coffee shop near the park, the same place where we'd had our first date. He looked exhausted, guarded. "Make it quick," he said, sitting down. I handed him
a folder. Inside were copies of the identity theft reports, the credit card statement, and screenshots of the fake accounts she'd made using my name. He flipped through them silently, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief to horror. "Wait," he muttered. "So the woman I've been with is my sister," I said quietly, "and she's pretending to be me." Ethan looked up, his face pale. "But she told me you were unstable, that you'd tried to sabotage her relationship because you couldn't accept that I'd moved on." A bitter laugh escaped my throat. "Of course she did. That's what she does. She twists everything." He leaned back, rubbing his face. "Oh my God." Then I told him about the wedding invitation. "She's marrying you under my name," I said, "which means she's committing federal fraud, and I can prove it." Ethan sat in silence for a long moment. Then, slowly, he looked up. "What do you want me to do?" I took a deep breath. "Help me stop her." The alliance. Over the next few days, Ethan and I met secretly to gather evidence. He forwarded emails, voice messages, and even a few financial documents she'd sent him, all under my name. One recording made my blood run cold. It was Chloe's voice, whispering, "Don't worry, baby. Once the paperwork goes through, we'll be free. No one will ever know." She wasn't just marrying him. She was planning something bigger. Maybe access to his accounts. Maybe his inheritance. I didn't know. But whatever it was criminal. So I went back to the police with the new evidence. This time, they listened. And when I mentioned that the wedding was in 2 weeks, the detective nodded grimly. "Keep playing along," he said. "Let her think she's won. We'll be ready." I walked out of that station feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Power. My sister had taken everything from me. But now she had no idea I was coming for her. I wasn't the heartbroken older sister anymore. I was the woman she'd underestimated. And when the wedding day came, I was going to make sure everyone saw her for who she really was.
2 weeks. That's all the time I had to prepare. 2 weeks until Chloe would walk down the aisle wearing my name, my stolen identity, and my engagement ring to marry the man she had manipulated into believing she was me. Every night, I lay awake replaying every moment of our childhood. The times we laughed until we cried, the secrets we whispered under the blankets, the promises we made that we'd always have each other's backs. And now she'd used that same closeness to destroy me. But not this time. This time I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to be quiet. I was going to take my life back in front of everyone. The plan. Detective Ramirez, the officer handling my case, had been cautious. "We can't just storm the wedding without proof," he told me. "But if she's using your legal identity, signing papers, filing licenses, then we'll have her on federal fraud charges." I nodded. "She'll have to use my name on the marriage license." He leaned back in his chair. "Exactly. Once she signs that document, it's evidence. But we'll need witnesses." I hesitated. "Ethan will be there, and me." Ramirez smiled faintly. "Then let's give her the performance she'll never forget." We set up everything carefully. Authorization, surveillance, and legal officers ready to step in once the fraud was confirmed. I had only one job, to be there when it happened. The dress. The day before the wedding, I drove to the church where Chloe and Ethan were supposed to get married. My hands were shaking as I parked across the street and just watched. People were going in and out, decorators, florists, planners. I saw Chloe at one point, laughing, her arm hooked through Ethan as she barked orders. It was surreal watching her wear my smile, my gestures, my favorite soft pink dress, the one I'd worn on my anniversary with Ethan. For a moment, I felt something strange. Sadness, not anger. Sadness that my sister had gone so far off the rails that she couldn't tell the difference between her life and mine. But then I remembered the months of humiliation, the heartbreak, the fear when my identity was stolen, and the pity turned to steel. She wanted to be me? Fine, let her play the part, because tomorrow I was going to take center stage. The wedding day. The morning of the wedding was bright, almost cruelly perfect. The kind of sunshine that feels like mockery when your heart is in chaos. I got dressed quietly, a pale blue dress, simple but elegant. My hair was pinned up, makeup light. I didn't want to draw attention, at least not at first. When I arrived at the church, I stayed in the back, near the entrance. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. Guests were already filling the pews, murmuring with excitement. I recognized some of them. Ethan's family, mutual friends, even people from my old workplace. And then she appeared. Chloe. She walked down the aisle in a white lace gown, glowing, holding Ethan's hand. Her hair was styled exactly like I used to wear it. Even her bouquet matched the one I once shown Ethan in a bridal magazine. But what really made my stomach turn was when I heard the priest announce, "We are gathered here today to witness the union of Ethan Hayes and Lena Carter." That was my name. I glanced toward the side, where Detective Ramirez stood disguised as a guest, giving me the smallest nod. It was time. The moment of truth. The ceremony went on. The vows, the readings, the laughter. Ethan played his part perfectly. He looked nervous, but said all the right words. When the priest finally said, "Please present your marriage license for signing," my heart froze. This was it. Chloe turned gracefully, took the pen, and signed my name on the paper. A perfect copy. The second she lifted the pen, I stood up. "Stop the ceremony." Gasps rippled through the church. Chloe froze, turning slowly, her face draining of color. "Lena?" she stammered. The guests whispered among themselves. Some thought it was a prank. Others looked genuinely confused. I walked down the aisle, each step measured, my heels echoing on the marble floor. "Funny thing," I said softly. "You stole my ID, my name, and my fiancé. But you forgot something." Chloe's eyes darted around, panicked. "She's lying! She's crazy!" I pulled a folder from my purse and dropped it on the nearest pew. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Identity theft reports, bank statements, fake emails, all signed by you. The detective stepped forward then, flashing his badge. "Chloe Carter, you're under arrest for identity theft and fraud." The entire church erupted into chaos. Chloe tried to bolt, but 2 officers intercepted her. She screamed, cried, begged, but it was too late. Ethan stood frozen at the altar, staring in shock as his entire wedding collapsed before his eyes. I turned to him, my voice calm despite the tremor in my hands. "I told you I'd prove it." He swallowed hard. "Lena, I'm so sorry. I didn't know." "I know, but you should have." And with that, I turned and walked out of the church, leaving the chaos behind me. When the police car carrying Chloe finally disappeared down the street, I stood there motionless. The chaos from inside the church echoed faintly. Shocked guests, muffled voices, the sound of my name whispered over and over like gossip turned weapon. Lena Carter, the real one. For months, my life had been hijacked, rewritten, and mocked by the person who knew me best. But now, standing in the sunlight with the smell of fresh roses from the wedding flowers still in the air, I finally felt like I could breathe again. The lie was over, but the truth, my truth, was only just beginning. The fallout. By the next morning, the entire city knew. It was everywhere. The local news, social media, even gossip blogs. "Bride arrested mid-ceremony for identity theft. Victim was her sister." I didn't even have to tell anyone. The world told itself. I spent that morning sitting by the window of my small apartment, watching my phone buzz non-stop. Messages from coworkers, friends, even distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Some said they couldn't believe it. Others said they always suspected Chloe had a dark side. But what caught me off guard the most was a voicemail from Ethan. "Lena, I don't know if you'll ever forgive me, but I need you to know I'm sorry. I was blind. I wanted to believe her because she looked like you, sounded like you, but it wasn't you. It was never you." He paused, his voice breaking. "You didn't deserve any of this. If there's anything I can do to make it right, anything at all, I will." I listened twice, maybe 3 times. Not because I wanted him back, but because hearing him say he finally knew the truth mattered more than I realized. Still, forgiveness wasn't something I could give easily. Not yet. Family backlash. Of course, word spread fast within my family, too. My parents were devastated. My mother called me crying, voice trembling. "How could she do this, Lena? How could my own daughter do this to her sister?" I didn't have an answer. Chloe had always been our family's golden child. Charming, spontaneous, endlessly forgiven. I was the steady one, the one they relied on. And maybe that's what fueled her resentment. Maybe she wanted to beat me at my own life. When my father got on the phone, his tone was sharp, brittle. "She's been charged, Lena. Fraud, impersonation, theft. We'll get her a lawyer, but..." He sighed deeply. "Whatever happens, it's her doing." I swallowed hard. "I don't want revenge anymore, Dad. I just want peace." There was silence on the line before he whispered, "You deserve that." Ethan's apology. A week after the wedding, Ethan showed up at my door. I hesitated before opening it. Part of me wanted to slam it shut. Another part wanted closure. He looked tired, thinner, guilt written all over his face. He had to see me, he said softly. I crossed my arms. You seen me. Lena, he ran a hand through his hair. I swear, I didn't know. She convinced me that you were unstable, that you had been stalking her, trying to ruin her life after we broke up. She showed me fake messages, even fake photos. She's good at faking things, I said coldly. He nodded slowly. I should have known. I should have trusted what I felt, the real you. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I looked him straight in the eye and asked him, "Do you love her?" He looked shocked. What? No, I loved you. But she looked like me, I finished for him. She sounded like me. That's why you fell for her. He looked down, ashamed. Maybe, he whispered. I took a deep breath. Then I said, let's be honest, Ethan. You didn't just lose a fiancé. You lost yourself, too. He blinked, his eyes glossy with regret. I'll live with that, he murmured. Then after a long silence, he turned to leave. Ethan, I said softly, and he stopped at the door. For what it's worth it. I'm glad you know the truth. He nodded once and left without looking back. And somehow, that was enough. Chloe's trial. 3 months later, I sat in a courtroom, not out of vengeance, but closure. Chloe was led in wearing a pale blue jumpsuit, her wrists shackled. For a second, she looked at me, and I saw not the villain who'd stolen my life, but the broken girl I'd once shared a room with. Her lawyer pleaded temporary insanity, emotional instability, childhood rivalry, every excuse possible. But the evidence was clear. The forged documents, the fraudulent marriage license, the recordings of her using my name to access accounts. When the judge read her sentence, 3 years in prison and mandatory therapy, Chloe started sobbing. And for the first time, I didn't feel angry, just empty. Because justice doesn't feel like triumph when it's your own family on the other end of it. A new beginning. After the trial, I took time for myself. I moved out of the city, found a small, peaceful town by the coast. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. Some nights, I'd sit on my porch, watching the waves crash against the rocks, thinking about everything that had happened. And every time I did, I told myself the same thing. I didn't lose. I survived. I got a new job, new friends, a new start. And though I still carried scars, emotional, invisible ones, they reminded me of how strong I had become. One day, I even got a letter from Chloe, handwritten, apologetic, real. Lena, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even forgive myself. I wanted your life because I thought mine wasn't enough. But you were always stronger than me, and I see that now. I cried reading it. Not because I missed her, but because for the first time, I believed her. Maybe one day I'll answer, but not yet. For now, peace is enough. The courtroom was silent, except for the faint hum of the ceiling fans. My lawyer's voice echoed off the marble walls as he read out the evidence. Fake IDs, digital transfers, and voice recordings that left no doubt. My sister, Emily, sat at the defense table, her once perfect posture now slumped, her eyes empty. This wasn't how I ever imagined our lives would turn out. We were sisters, flesh and blood, bound by years of laughter, secrets, and dreams. But somewhere along the line, envy had replaced love, and lies had replaced truth. When the judge asked if I had anything to say before sentencing, I stood. My knees trembled, but my voice didn't. Your Honor, I began softly, This wasn't just about identity theft, it was about betrayal. My sister didn't just take my name, she tried to erase me. She wanted to live my life, to wear my skin, to claim my love. But what she didn't realize is that you can steal a name, but you can't steal a soul. Emily looked up, tears streaking down her face. I didn't mean to hurt you, Claire. I just wanted to be you for a little while, to know what it felt like to be loved. Her words cut through me like glass. I wanted to hate her. I really did. But in that moment, I saw something raw and broken in her eyes. The jealousy, the desperation, the pain of always feeling second best. The judge sentenced her to 5 years in prison, but suspended part of it under psychiatric care. I didn't celebrate. There was no joy in watching my sister led away in handcuffs, only a hollow ache where love used to be. Weeks passed. Life slowly began to feel normal again. I changed my passwords, fixed my credit, and rebuilt my professional reputation. But emotionally, the damage ran deeper. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw both of us, me and the sister who had tried to replace me. Then one afternoon, I got a letter. It was from Emily. The handwriting was shaky, almost unrecognizable, but the words made me cry harder than I had in months. Claire, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I broke something that can't be fixed. But I wanted you to know I'm getting help. I've been talking to a therapist here, and I finally understand what I did and why. I don't want your life anymore. I just want my own. Please don't hate me forever. Emily. I sat on the porch, holding that letter for hours. Maybe I couldn't forget. Maybe I couldn't forgive. Not yet. But I could let go of the hate. Because hate is heavy, and I'd carried it long enough. Months later, I decided to take a trip. Somewhere quiet, away from the noise and memories. I drove to a small cabin by the coast. The ocean air felt cleansing. The sound of the waves like therapy. One evening, as the sun dipped into the water, I took out an old photo of us. Emily and me at age 10, smiling, arms around each other. I placed it on the porch railing, lit a candle beside it, and whispered, I hope you find peace, Em. I'm finding mine. I didn't know what the future held, whether we'd ever speak again or not. But I knew I was done being the victim. I was the survivor, the one who rebuilt her name, her life, her strength. And that's the thing about losing everything. It forces you to find what's real. Trust, resilience, self-worth. Things no one can ever steal. As the candle flame flickered in the sea breeze, I smiled. Not because everything was okay, but because I finally was. Justice had been served, my identity restored, my peace reclaimed. And for the first time in years, I felt whole again.